"You're just holding us back," she said, flipping her hair like she was dismissing a waiter. That's how I lost my job. My name's Frank Delaney, and for 18 years, I took day operations at Madison Industrial Tools in Dayton, Ohio. I wasn't flashy. I didn't give speeches or play politics. I just made sure everything worked on time, on budget, and with pride. But the moment Lauren Madison, the founder's 28-year-old daughter, stepped in as CEO, things changed. Fresh from business school and 2 years living in Los Angeles, she came in waving buzzwords like synergy and streamlining. Her version of progress. Clearing out anyone with gray hair. I was the first to go. What she didn't realize, what she never bothered to ask, was that my contract had a clause written in by her own father, Jack Madison. If I was let go without cause, I'd receive 2 years' salary and severance. Jack had added that in years ago to protect me from exactly this kind of reckless decision. So, while Lauren thought she was clearing the way for her vision, I quietly boxed up my things, walked to my truck, and made one call. To my lawyer, a friend who'd been waiting for a case this clean. I didn't yell. I didn't fight. I didn't need to. The battle was already won on paper, and in the legacy I helped build. 3 days after being fired, I sat across from Lauren Madison and the company's legal counsel in a high-rise office downtown. The new CEO of Madison Industrial Tools, barely 28 and fresh out of business school, had decided that I, Frank Delaney, 59 years old and operations manager for nearly 2 decades, was no longer part of her vision. She didn't know, however, that her late father, Jack Madison, had built protections into my contract, protections she never bothered to read. So when she terminated me, without cause, she triggered a clause guaranteeing me 2 full years of severance. That came to over $320,000. "This is ridiculous," she scoffed during the meeting. "We're shifting direction. That's enough cause." My attorney, Harold Stone, 67 years old and as sharp as ever, gently tacked the contract in front of him. "Not according to Section 12, Appendix C," he said. "You need documented performance issues, ethical breaches, or criminal activity. You have none. This is a termination without cause, which means full severance, as agreed." The company's young lawyer, clearly uncomfortable, flipped through a slim folder, but there was nothing, no warnings, no poor reviews, just Lauren's ambition and her assumption that experience had an expiration date. I stayed silent, letting the paper do the talking. Lauren offered 6 months. Harold declined. We stood, shook hands with no warmth, and left. Outside, I didn't feel victorious. I felt steady. Because this wasn't about revenge. It was about recognizing the value of experience and honoring the work that built the foundation her father left behind. That same afternoon, I met Thomas Baldwin, our former head of engineering, at a quiet diner on the edge of town. Thomas, also forced out, had been offered a smaller severance. He stirred his coffee without drinking it. "They want me to sign an NDA. 5 years. No mention of my own designs, nothing." I pushed a business card across the table. "Douglas Clean, owner of Precision Tech. He's been trying to recruit me for years. We're starting something new, custom hydraulic components. High margin, low volume, quality first. The kind of work Lauren thinks is a waste of time." Thomas raised his eyebrows. "You're building something." I nodded. "From the ground up. The name's Cornerstone Precision. You're welcome to join." He didn't say yes then and there, but he took the card. We both knew what it meant. Within weeks, we had a small warehouse leased on the east side of Dayton. Douglas, a practical man in his 60s with rolled-up sleeves and a no-nonsense style, backed us with full confidence. "I'm just investing in good people," he said. "I'll help you start it. Then I'll get out of the way." One by one, others joined. Laid-off programmers, technicians, and machinists who had been discarded by Madison Industrial. Not out of loyalty to me, but out of belief in doing things right. We didn't promise the moon. We promised consistency, craftsmanship, and respect. Meanwhile, back at Madison Industrial, things weren't going so smoothly. Jennifer, a former colleague still working in quality control, sent me updates. Missed deadlines. 3 major clients threatening to pull contracts. Specialized equipment being sold off for pennies on the dollar. Lauren was chasing volume instead of value, and the cracks were showing. I didn't feel joy reading those messages. Those clients and staff were people I knew, families I'd worked with for years. It wasn't about watching something fail. It was about understanding why it was failing. Then came the unexpected call from Charles Madison, Jack's brother and a longtime board member. "Frank," he said, "we need to talk. Lauren's decisions are costing us, and the board's getting nervous. Would you be willing to meet? Meet to talk about what?" I asked. "A new structure. Possibly new leadership." That night, I sat down with Thomas and Douglas in our modest office. The future was no longer theoretical. We were building it. Harper Machinery had forgotten the lesson Jack Madison once taught me. Machines are only as strong as the hands that build them, and the hands are only as good as the mind that values them. Lauren didn't value those hands. But we did, and we were just getting started. The severance payment from Madison Industrial, just north of $320,000, hit my account a week after our legal meeting. You'd think I'd feel triumphant. I didn't. I felt empty. Money was never the point. That afternoon, I met with Thomas Baldwin, the former head of engineering, at a quiet diner just off I-70. It was nearly empty at 3 p.m. A couple of long haul drivers at the counter, the smell of fresh coffee in the air, and the two of us in a back booth, nursing cups of black. "They gave me 12 months as severance," Thomas said, stirring his coffee. "Better than nothing. But they want me muzzled. NDA says I can't talk about anything for 5 years. Even the designs I created. You signing it?" I asked. He sighed. "I've got a granddaughter starting college next fall. What choice do I have?" I reached into my coat and slid a business card across the table. Douglas Clean. Precision Tech. We're launching a new division, Cornerstone Precision. Custom hydraulics, high precision work. No NDAs. Just good engineering. Thomas looked at the card like it was a lifeline. "Harper will sue me if I take this." "Not if you're advising on general industry standards," I said. "Nothing proprietary. Just doing what we've always done. Building things that last." He pocketed the card. "Why are you doing this, Frank?" "You've never been one to stir the pot." I looked him in the eye. "Because someone has to rebuild what they're trying to destroy." We'd worked together over a decade. He knew I wasn't bluffing. Over the next several weeks, Cornerstone Precision began taking shape. We leased a modest facility on the east side of Dayton, outfitted it with refurbished CNC equipment, and started assembling a team. By mid-month, we'd brought in 7 former Madison employees, every one of them top-tier talent Lauren had cast aside. Jason Wright, a brilliant CNC programmer who had been underpaid and overworked, joined us after his department had its budget slashed by 30%. Jennifer, who still worked at Madison's lab and couldn't retire just yet, sent quiet updates. Production delays, client complaints, layoffs. It was unraveling, just as we predicted. I took no pleasure in that. Madison Industrial had fed families, paid college tuitions, supported aging parents. I wasn't rooting for it to fail. I just wasn't going to let Lauren drag everything good her father built into the ground. One night, I got a call from Charles Madison, Jack's brother and longtime board member. "Frank," he said, voice low, "we need to talk." "I'm listening." "Lauren's selling off assets, cutting corners. We've lost 3 major clients in 60 days. The board is worried, and frankly, I'm scared. Would you be willing to meet?" I paused. The question hung heavy between us. "Meet to talk about what?" "Options," he said, "including new leadership." That evening, I sat in our office at Cornerstone with Thomas and Douglas, reviewing plans for a new contract with Midwest Manufacturing, one of Madison's biggest former clients. Their purchasing director had already reached out. They wanted stability, quality, the kind of things we'd always stood for. We were just getting started, and already the tides were turning. As I looked around our modest warehouse, watching Jason training 2 fresh hires and Thomas sketching system diagrams by hand, I realized something. We weren't just building a business. We were building a second chance. For ourselves, and for every worker discarded in the name of fresh vision. Douglas stepped into the room, wiping his hands on a rag. "We're ready," he said. "Clients are waiting." I nodded, heart steady. Lauren thought she was clearing out dead wood. What she didn't realize was that the roots she cut were the only thing keeping the company from toppling. And now those roots had found fresh soil. 2 months after getting pushed out of Madison Industrial, I sat across from Douglas Clean in the corner office of our new venture, Cornerstone Precision. The building was an old warehouse on the east side of Dayton, now freshly renovated, humming with the beginnings of something real. We weren't just building a company, we were rebuilding a purpose. Thomas Baldwin had joined us a few weeks earlier, and together, we'd started assembling a team of seasoned professionals, many of whom had been discarded by Lauren Madison in her so-called modernization. Of the business her father, Charles, had built from the ground up, she called it progress. We called it poor judgment. Douglas was an investor, sure, but more than that, he was a believer. Let the craftsmen run the floor, he'd said. My job is to make sure the checks clear and the machines keep running. We had suppliers lined up, machine shops ready to deliver 5 units by month's end, and Jason, our new CNC programmer, was already working on the first client batch. Jason had spent 6 years at Madison Industrial before Lauren gutted his department while doubling her own salary. He walked out without looking back. How many of them now? Douglas asked one morning as we reviewed the onboarding chart. 7, I said. All top performers. He let out a low whistle. Lauren's bleeding out talent faster than she realizes. She's not providing leadership, I said plainly. People follow vision, not spreadsheets. That same day, I got a text from Jennifer, still in the quality control lab at Madison. She couldn't afford to leave just yet. Retirement was still 3 years out, but she was feeding us updates like a slow leak in a sinking ship. The message was blunt: 3 major clients threatening to pull contracts. Delays everywhere. Missed delivery deadlines. Things are unraveling. I shared it with Douglas, who nodded solemnly. It's what we expected, he said. A company can't survive when it treats its experience like dead weight. That afternoon, we began drafting a proposal for Midwest Manufacturing, one of Madison's biggest legacy clients. Their purchasing director had already expressed interest in our transition timeline. They want a partner, not a gamble, Douglas said. Let's show them where it. Then, the call came. It was Charles Madison. His voice had lost some of its strength, but not its clarity. Frank, he said, we need to talk. I didn't say much. Just let him talk. She's selling equipment. Quality's slipping. I didn't want to believe it, but the board's seeing it too. And I made a mistake. I should have listened when you told me she wasn't ready. What are you asking me, Charles? I need your help. I need you to come tonight, 7 o'clock. Bring Thomas if he's willing. The board wants options. Real ones, including new leadership. I hung up the phone and stood by the window overlooking our growing warehouse floor. Workers were installing new lathes and hydraulic presses. Machines Charles had once called legacy tools were now becoming the foundation of something new. Thomas, I called. You free tonight? Always, he said without looking up from his design table. That evening, we drove to Charles's house. He looked older, frailer, but there was fire in his eyes. The boardroom was full. All ears turned when I laid out what we'd built at Cornerstone: steady operations, minimal turnover, clients lining up, quality benchmarks that Madison hadn't hit in years. The silence afterward was heavy. Then Charles spoke. It's time for a change, he said. I built Madison Industrial with these men, and I'll be damned if I let it collapse under the weight of arrogance and ego. We agreed to explore a merger. Cornerstone Precision would absorb Madison's custom hydraulics division. Thomas would oversee engineering. I would lead integration. Lauren would step aside. A week later, the decision was finalized. 6 months after being fired, I returned to the company I helped shape, not with bitterness, but with resolve. This time, we'd build something that respected both the wisdom of the past and the promise of the future. And we'd do it right. A week after the merger between Cornerstone Precision and Madison Industrial was finalized, my severance payout from the past, $320,000 after taxes, hit my account. It should have felt like justice. It should have felt like a victory, but it didn't. I wasn't in this to collect a paycheck and walk away. I was in it to protect something that had taken years of sweat, skill, and integrity to build. That same afternoon, I met Thomas Baldwin at a small diner just off Route 31. We'd spent over a decade side by side on the production floor, keeping machines humming and quality tight. Now, we were both free agents, or so it seemed. They offered me a year's severance, Thomas said, stirring his coffee like it was too bitter to drink. Not as sweet as your deal, but I guess it's something. They want you to sign an NDA. He nodded. 5 years. Can't talk about anything proprietary. Can't consult. Can't even sneeze without them calling it a breach. You gonna sign? I've got a granddaughter starting college next year, he said with a sigh. Health insurance isn't cheap either. I slid a card across the table. Douglas Clean. Precision parts. He's looking for consultants who know precision hydraulics. No NDA, no drama. Thomas eyed the card like it was radioactive. They'll sue me if I take this. Not if you're just advising on general industry standards, I replied. Nothing proprietary. Just common sense, which they seem to be allergic to over there. He pocketed the card slowly. What are you up to, Frank? You stirring the pot? I'm building something better, I said. A place that respects the people who actually know how to build things. A place that values experience, not just buzzwords. I told him about Cornerstone Precision, about the facility we were renovating on the east side, about the clients we were courting, and the quiet network of talent flowing in from Madison's sinking ship. Thomas leaned back, his eyes narrowing. And you want me in? I do, I said plainly. Custom hydraulic components. The high margin, low volume stuff Lauren called a waste of time. You and I both know that's where the future is. He smiled for the first time in weeks. Cheryl's always said that too. Yeah, I said. And Lauren's gutting that future and liquidating everything her father built. We both sat silent, letting that truth settle like dust. I'm in, Thomas finally said. Just say when. 2 months after Lauren fired me, I was sitting in Douglas's office reviewing architectural plans for the new operation. The old warehouse was nearly ready. Equipment was arriving. Vendors were locked in. Jason Wright, one of the best CNC programmers we'd ever had joined the team after walking out of Madison when his department got defunded. That made 7 former Madison employees now working with us. Douglas let out a low whistle. They're hemorrhaging talent. They treated loyalty like a liability, I said. This is what happens. Just then, my phone buzzed. Jennifer, still stuck at Madison's lab, sent me a photo of an internal memo, client complaints, missed deadlines, parts returned for defects. Douglas glanced at it and nodded. It's starting. We decided to reach out to Midwest Manufacturing, one of Madison's largest clients. They'd been watching things unravel and were already talking to our team about a switch. Douglas scheduled a meeting for the following week. We were ready. We had the people, the knowledge, the ethics, and soon we'd have the contracts. That night, as I looked out over the warehouse floor, I knew this wasn't just about business. It was about redemption. It was about proving that care, craftsmanship, and character still mattered in an industry chasing profit margins and ignoring the people who actually made it all work. Lauren Madison thought she was untouchable. She was about to find out what happens when the foundation you inherited starts walking out the door and rebuilding itself right across town. 2 months after being fired, I stood inside the newly renovated facility that would soon become the heart of something better. Cornerstone Precision. The name came from Thomas Baldwin himself. You build from the corners up, he said. That's how you make something that lasts. And that was exactly what we were doing. The warehouse, 25,000 square feet of solid Indiana steel and concrete, was already buzzing with movement. Jason Wright, one of the brightest young programmers I'd mentored at Madison Industrial, had joined our crew. His CNC modeling skills were unmatched, and Vanessa Madison, the daughter of my former boss, had cut his department's budget by 30% while doubling her own salary. He walked out 2 weeks later. Now, he was here, helping us design smarter systems. That made 7 of us. Top talent Madison had let slip through her fingers. Douglas Clean, my business partner and the investor behind Cornerstone, leaned over a stack of supplier contracts. He was a big man with a barrel chest, white beard, and sleeves perpetually rolled to the elbow. He'd built and sold 3 companies in his lifetime and was looking to invest in people more than product. "How many from Madison now?" he asked. 7, I said. "And counting." He gave a low whistle. "They're hollowing out fast." My phone buzzed. It was a text from Jennifer, still stuck in Madison's lab. Retirement was 3 years away, so she couldn't afford to jump ship. But that didn't stop her from sharing what she could. The memo she sent was a red flag the size of a billboard. Production delays. 3 major clients threatening to pull their contracts. Quality issues tied directly to inexperienced staff and machinery being sold off. Douglas read it, adjusted his reading glasses, and shook his head. Just like we figured. The brain drains hitting them hard. I didn't feel satisfied. I felt responsible. We weren't just trying to build a business. We were trying to protect the work and legacy of people who had built their lives around something they believed in. Midwest manufacturing. I asked, referring to one of Madison's biggest clients. "Already scheduled a meeting," Douglas replied. "Their procurement lead is looking forward to it." I nodded. "Let's be ready in 60 days. That afternoon, I stood by the window overlooking the warehouse floor. The scent of oil, the hum of machines, it felt like home. But the peace didn't last long. My phone lit up again. Charles Madison, the founder of Madison Industrial, the man who had trusted me with his company for nearly 2 decades, before he handed it over to his daughter Lauren. I answered. "Charles." "Stan," he said, his voice lower, weaker than I remembered. "I know what you're doing. The company. The people you've hired." I stayed silent. It wasn't illegal. It wasn't even unethical. It was just smart business and long overdue protection. "I'm not calling to ask you to stop," he continued. "I'm calling to ask for help." That stopped me cold. "What kind of help?" "The kind that might save what's left of Madison Industrial." He explained what I already suspected. Lauren had been selling off specialized equipment Charles had invested in for custom hydraulics. She'd outsourced quality control, cut corners, and chased short-term profits over long-term stability. The board was getting nervous. So was he. "You're the only one who knows how the whole system fits together," he said. "The only one who can see a path forward." "And why me?" "Because I should have listened to you months ago. And because you warned me she wasn't ready." He paused. "I need you to come by tonight. 7 o'clock. Bring Thomas if he'll come. The board wants to talk about options." Options. Including a change in leadership. I looked out over our growing facility. I thought of the employees still at Madison, the families who depended on those jobs, the decades of trust and integrity built into that place. And I thought of the future we were building here. "I'll be there," I said. "But I'm not promising anything." "That's fair," Charles said, relief clear in his voice. "And Stan." "Yeah. Thank you for still taking my calls." That evening, as I gathered my notes and called Thomas, I wasn't thinking about revenge. I was thinking about legacy. Not just saving what was left of it, but rebuilding it into something stronger, something that would last, not in memory, but in motion. And this time we'd do it the right way. 6 months after I was fired, I found myself standing in the back of the very conference room I used to lead from, this time as a quiet observer. Lauren Madison, daughter of the company's founder, was halfway through blaming market shifts and legacy inefficiencies for a stunning 37% drop in revenue. But her voice faltered when she saw me. "What is he doing here?" she snapped. Charles Madison, seated quietly with the board, gave a small nod. The chairman stood. "Lauren," he said, "the board has made a decision regarding company leadership." She turned pale. I stepped forward, folder in hand. "As of this morning," I announced, "Madison Industrial will merge with Cornerstone Precision. The custom hydraulics division will continue, under new leadership." Lauren shook with disbelief. "This is absurd." Charles rose beside me. "You hold 20%, he said gently. I retained 51% and I voted for the merger. She had gambled on power. I had chosen purpose. Sometimes, walking away is the first step toward building something better. Respect and experience might not always be loud, but they echo where it matters. Never doubt the power of quiet, steady integrity. It builds legacies long after noise fades. What's one moment in your life where walking away gave you the power to rebuild? Share your thoughts below. And if you believe in stories that remind us of the strength in starting over, don't forget to comment, and subscribe for more.